Welcome everyone to Things Around 8. Dear friends, in this video we will talk about the Iranian nuclear bomb, which according to the United States, is very close to being achieved and the consequences this will have for the Middle East and the rest of the world. And if you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now and activate the notification bells so you don't miss any news. On Friday, July 19th, Antony Blinken, the United States Secretary of State, said during a security conference that Iran is at most 2 weeks away from having enough nuclear fuel to start producing nuclear weapons. According to Blinken, because of the end of the Iran nuclear agreement after the United States left in 2018, after then President Trump accused the Iranians of not complying with the agreement signed in 2015, Tehran accelerated its nuclear program, and is now, according to the White House, at most 2 weeks away from being able to start producing this type of weapon. Secretary Blinken told the conference that the Biden administration is committed to preventing Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons, and that the United States prefers to ensure this through diplomatic means, signaling that the military route is not completely ruled out. And it was with this objective that between 2021 and 2022, the White House held indirect negotiations with Iran to revive the nuclear agreement. However, in late 2022, these negotiations collapsed after Iran made absurd demands to the International Atomic Energy Agency. Masoud Pezeshkian, Iran's president-elect, seen as a reformer, said that his country is ready to return to the negotiating table to revive the nuclear agreement. But the White House, through a series of statements, said that the agreement is not in a position to be revived due to the tremendous progress made by Iran since 2018 in the uranium enrichment process, an essential step for the production of nuclear weapons. Unlike civilian nuclear reactors, which are exclusively for electricity production and require uranium enriched to less than 5%, nuclear bombs require uranium purity levels of around 90%. This is an extremely complex and expensive process to conduct, with the main method used in the world today for this purpose being centrifugation. Through this method, thousands of centrifuges gradually enrich the uranium in a cascade. Machines that consume enormous amounts of energy, and yet produce very discrete results. This requires thousands of centrifuges working together, 24 hours a day. And it was precisely in centrifuges that Iran has invested the most since the end of the nuclear agreement in 2018, with the Iranian government itself announcing in 2023 that it is already capable of producing large quantities of uranium enriched to up to 60%. Which means that right now, at this very moment, Iran is already capable of producing small quantities of uranium at 90%. The next step is to store this uranium and build even more centrifuges to speed up the enrichment process. If Iran does indeed become a nuclear power, what impact will this have on the Middle East and the rest of the world? To answer this question, we need to understand the fundamental role of atomic bombs. As I have said in several videos here on the channel, nuclear bombs are weapons of deterrence. In other words, they prevent nuclear attacks from enemy nations, because everyone knows that if a nuclear power is attacked with nuclear weapons, the response will come in kind. But nuclear weapons also serve to deter particularly strong attacks with conventional weapons, such as decapitation attacks, which is when a nation tries to eliminate the leadership of the enemy nation through precision strikes against its leaders, or attacks aimed at destroying defense structures seen as essential, which in Iran's case would be its nuclear and uranium enrichment facilities. Therefore, in the Iranian case, with Tehran obtaining nuclear weapons, the country will feel much more comfortable attacking its enemies, as it will know that it cannot be counterattacked with nuclear weapons or even with conventional weapons against strategic facilities. In practice, Iran with nuclear weapons will represent more attacks against Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the United States in the Middle East. It is worth remembering that Iran, in April 2024, broke an important taboo by directly attacking Israel for the first time in history. With this door open, Iran, as a nuclear power, will be able to attack Israel directly again with much greater freedom, knowing in advance that the Israelis will not be able to counterattack with excessive force. In addition to the increase in Iranian attacks in the Middle East, an atomic bomb in Tehran's hands will trigger a nuclear arms race in the region, with the first country to rush in this direction being Saudi Arabia, against which Iran is waging a proxy war through the Yemeni Houthis. Right behind Israel and the United States, Saudi Arabia is Iran's biggest adversary in the Middle East, with the Saudis and Iranians vying for hegemony over the Persian Gulf region for decades. And so it is expected that Saudi Arabia does not want to be behind Iran in terms of nuclear weapons. From what we know, Saudi Arabia does not have a nuclear weapons program, and the country is a signatory to the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. But all this could change in a split second, as soon as it is confirmed that Iran now has nuclear weapons in its arsenal. Since Saudi Arabia is a very rich country, it is perfectly capable of acquiring all the necessary equipment. And since it is a country with excellent relations with the United States and the West in general, it is unlikely to receive many sanctions. Egypt is another country that may feel motivated to seek nuclear weapons. With its nuclear program resumed in 2013 for civilian purposes, the Egyptians already have the basics to move forward with its military program. Another major risk of an Iran with nuclear weapons is terrorist attacks carried out with this type of weapon. As we know, Iran is the country that finances the most terrorist groups in the world, such as Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen, who have been attacking ships in the Red Sea for months, and who recently hit Tel Aviv with an Iranian-made drone. Iran could easily provide nuclear weapons to these groups to attack Israel, thereby trying to avoid a direct Israeli counter-response. And for the rest of the world, the possible effects of a nuclear Iran are also very serious. In a nuclear war scenario between Israel and Iran, the major powers could be drawn into the conflict, since it is important to remember that the United States is Israel's main ally, while Russia is Iran's main ally. This means that these major powers could also be directly involved in a nuclear war scenario in the Middle East. As we can see, a nuclear-armed Iran would represent even more instability and attacks in the Middle East, in addition to contributing to bringing the world even closer to a potentially catastrophic global nuclear war. And if you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any news.